This episode of the Golf Guru Show is sponsored by enveedhemp.com. That's ENVEED hemp.com. I'm happy to say that Enveed has been my choice for my CBD needs for almost 3 years now, and I can't begin to tell you how it's improved my life. They come in 3 formulas: Clarity, Relief, and Relax. I typically take a Clarity drop in the morning with my coffee to get me focused and ready to go for the day. Some Relief for my aches and pains or inflammation after a run or a workout. And then I do a drop of Relax before I go to bed that helps me get some of the best sleep that I've had in years. And my Whoop Band now tells me that it's definitely helping because my recovery scores have been higher than ever. Enveed Hemp CBD come in drops, roll-ons, and gummies, so you can take it however you choose. So go to enveedhemp.com and make sure you use the Guru code GURU20 for a 20% discount for life. You heard it right, 20% discount for life. CBD is a great supplement to keep you healthy and safe in these crazy times. So go get it. So let's get to today's episode.
It's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
You know how to cut to the core of me, Baxter. You're so wise. You're like a miniature Buddha covered in hair.
I want to become a guru so girls will like me. Then I will like myself.
Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules. Rule number 1. No touching of the hair or face.
Of course.
And that's it! Now let's do this!
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Golf Guru Show. I am Jason Sutton, Director of Instruction at Colleton River Club in Bluffton, South Carolina, and I am the Guru. On this episode, I have a very different format. This is the first time that I've done this. I had a young man named McAulay Renfro, teaching pro from Hickory, North Carolina, come and shadow me a few weeks ago. So we spent the day together. He watched me teach. We had some conversations. We actually met at the GRAA boot camp a couple of days prior, and he had asked to come down and shadow. And I said, yeah, absolutely, because it's a huge honor for me to have a young coach to come watch me teach. So I was very excited, and we had a great day together. And at the end, he said, hey, I'm heading to Florida. You know, we didn't have time to really sit down and debrief. Do you mind if I set up a phone call in the next week or so and we can reflect on what I've learned? Because I know he took a ton of notes. It was just a great example of what a young coach should do when he goes to shadow a coach. And I said, yeah, absolutely. So the more I thought about it, I was like, why don't we just make a podcast of it? So I reached out to him after he had texted me when he got back from Florida, and I said, let's just get on the pod, and you can ask questions, and we can make it, beneficial to other young coaches out there that maybe have questions about reaching out to top coaches and shadowing. So I thought this was really cool, and I hope you enjoy it. Make sure you give McAulay a follow on Instagram at McAulay Golf. And I hope you enjoy this format, as you might be the next podcast guest who becomes Shadow the Guru. So enjoy. All right, so McAulay Renfro, I want to go ahead and bring you on just to kind of catch the listeners up. This is a first of this sort of structure of the content that we're putting out. McAulay, I met McAulay a few weeks ago, I guess, right at the section summit.
Yeah, it's about a month ago.
About a month ago, and we connected on social, and then we were at a teaching summit that I was speaking at, and you had asked me to come shadow, right? So McAulay's a superstar young coach, and I'm gonna let him introduce himself and give you his bio. But then he came and shadowed, and he's gone and shadowed several other coaches, which is what he should be doing to really improve his teaching skills and get better. So after our day spent together, he asked me if we could do a follow-up phone call. And it's like, just thought, why not just throw it on the podcast and maybe help other folks and other young coaches out there, which is what this is all about. So welcome to the show, McAulay.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, my name's McAulay Renfro. I'm originally from Hickory, North Carolina. If you're not familiar, it's about an hour west of Charlotte. Started playing golf when I was 10, but it was just kind of a fun thing that my dad and I did a couple times a year. Go out to the par 3 golf course, slap it around, and then go grab some food after. But other than that, it was just kind of like a outing my dad and I did a couple times a year. Started to take it a lot more serious when I got in high school. Tried out for the golf team, didn't make it, and that kind of got me fired up. And so I was on a quest to try and learn as much as I possibly could and improve as quickly as I could. So I couldn't really afford golf lessons, so I grew up with YouTube. So that's where I got a lot of my instruction to start out with. Michael Breed's The Golf Fix, the Golf School. I know Martin Hall's one of your mentors.
Absolutely, yep.
So, yeah. Went to Methodist University, graduated in 2019. I've been a head pro, and I did that for about a year and a half, and then most recently now I'm in Taylorsville, North Carolina at Brushy Mountain Golf Club, where I'm the director of instruction.
Awesome. So you're moving up quickly. That's only like 2 years, bro. It's not a long time. You're acting like you've been in this thing for a long time, but
yeah.
So talk about your influences, and why did you reach out to me? Let's have a candid conversation.
So, I mean, there's so much media out there, right? So, and I spent so much time on YouTube and looking around, and, I started listening to your podcast, and, I really loved all the guests you had on. You've had Gigi, you've had Butch. I mean, you've had Rick Sessinghouse. I mean, you've had just a who's who in the golf instruction world, and now me, which seems kind of funny,
Happy birthday too, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, 25 today, big 25. But yeah, I mean, I listened to the podcast and followed you on Instagram, and I was like, I'm going to be heading down south, so I want to try and stop and see some coaches along the way, and you were kind of at the top of my list when I was heading down. So, I'm happy that we were able to connect at the teaching summit a month ago, and we were able to work it out where I could come shadow you, and got to have a couple of drinks the night before, which was nice. Yeah. After the GRAA boot camp, which it was, it was awesome.
With Rob Stokey too.
Yeah. The golf duck.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. So cool. So who else did you run or go and shadow on your way down to Florida? So
I saw Krista Dunton, and then on my way back from Orlando, I spent a day with Tony Ruggiero in Mobile, Alabama.
Nice.
Which was
awesome, coach.
Yeah. I don't know if you've had him on the pod, but he's definitely.
I have not. I want to have him on though, for sure.
Okay, I'll see if we can try and make that connection.
Yeah, can you hook me up?
I could make it. I could DM him. I don't think I've got his number, but I could DM him. He got back to me in like 10 minutes when I reached out to him, which I thought was crazy.
That's great. Cool. So let's dive into the reason for our call, right? You wanted to follow up on what you saw me do for a day with a sort of a variety of lessons. And I want to preface it, again, looking at helping the young coaches out there is when you go shadow, what are the do's and don'ts, and you can chime in too, and like what you were trying to do, like what your goal was. But I appreciated obviously you reaching out. It's an honor for any other teacher, young or old, to come watch me teach, because I feel like that's something I don't take for granted. I think it's fantastic. Also, that one, you showed up on time. Two, you took a lot of notes, and you stayed out of the way. Like you didn't interject unless a lot of times I'll bring young coaches into the lesson if I feel comfortable. Say, hey, this is why I did this, depending on the student and how the whole lesson is kind of working out. But that was a big part of it. And then the fact that you said, hey, can we follow up? I think that's huge. So I think those are all definite positives to a good day of shadowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, you can kind of tell I'm kind of a quiet guy. So being a fly on the wall is kind of what I'm used to. But, I mean, whenever I was watching, I just tried to take notes of everything. I was trying to hit kind of the highlights of the lesson. So whenever I went back, I could kind of write out how the lesson went, the flaws, what we were working on, or what you were working on, and then all that. Because I was just trying to, I'm only spending a day with you, which it was more of like a half day,
right?
But I was just trying to soak up as much as I possibly could in that 5 hours that we had together. So, if I disappear for 10 minutes, go to the bathroom, get on my phone or something because I'm bored, which I wasn't bored. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, you made it a point to like, whether you'd whisper something in my ear about, or just say like, this is more for him, not for you, when you were talking to the student. I thought that was really, really super valuable. So I know you probably thought I was like writing a doctoral thesis on like your whole coaching philosophy, but really all I was doing was just writing down like just kind of the key highlights of what you went through. And
why don't you share some of that with it? Because I mean, I don't know if you listened to TJ's podcast, the one I did last week. I mentioned you, and I was like, I'm curious to like what he wrote down, right? So it's because I can learn and get better if things that I can do better as well. So share with the listeners like what you wrote down or some of the keys. And then any questions, and let's just have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I mean, so like the first lesson, because you always, you talk about how, a lot of people when they take a lesson with you, if it's the first time, you might not say a word to them in the first 15 minutes. You're just kind of soaking it all in, trying to figure out how you're going to go about structuring the lesson. But the first lesson you had was 30 minutes, and you don't really have that luxury.
Yeah, it was quick.
And that's something, most of the lessons that I've ever given have been 30 minutes. I've given a lot more 30-minute lessons than hour lessons, and I can't tell you how many 30-minute lessons that I have not done in 30 minutes or less. And it's just tough. And I had the luxury at the club I was at in Virginia when I was a head pro. I usually didn't have back-to-back-to-back lessons, so I had the luxury of going 5-10 minutes over to make sure that the student understood everything. So I mean, that was kind of the first thing that I noticed. You ask the guy like very direct questions, like, what's your handicap, and what's your ball flight do when you hit it good? What does it do when you hit it bad? Your background, any injuries, what are your goals from the lesson? What are your goals with golf? Like, are you just wanting to play and have fun, or you just wanting to get down to scratch? Just trying to figure out, because I mean, if the guy wants to just play and have fun, you're not going to give him a ton to work on, or like like you're trying to teach a guy trying to get his card on tour or something. But so I really liked how you structured the lesson. I mean, it was like, it was a solid 25 minutes of work, and I think I looked over at the track man. He only hit like 20 shots in a half hour. So that was something I looked at too, just to kind of get an idea of like how much he was actually hitting, because you were working on the motion a lot more than you were working on just hitting shots. Another thing, you're extremely hands-on to make sure that you're putting them in the correct position. And you told me, there's an art to how you move people and get them in the correct position.
Yes.
And then try and have them verbally tell you what that feels like, and then try and have them repeat it on their own. Kind of going as slow as they need to make sure that they finish the motion or do the motion correctly. Which I've already put that. I've already given a couple of lessons since I got back, and the first lesson within 10 minutes, like got my hands on them, trying to move that body, which was great. I mean, the first lesson I had with him, he didn't quite get it. The second lesson, it was like, I mean, it was, he got it, and I have confidence that the next time that he comes back, the move's going to look a lot better than it did after the first lesson. So, I mean, pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it takes a lot of practice to like where you stand, where do you put your hands, how you move them. I mean, I learned that long ago at Dana's, and doing that, like if you have a mirror behind you, like in your bay or wherever you're teaching, that helps because you can look and see what you're actually doing to make sure you're moving them the way you want to move them. Because I made that mistake a long time ago. Is moving them improperly can be just as harmful as moving them correctly or whatever you're trying to get them to do.
Right.
So what else?
So
this is your show now, by the way.
It's my show. Okay. Yeah. the Golf Guru podcast, hosted by McAulay Renfro, with
there it is.
The Golf Guru as the guest. So let's see. So that was kind of the first lesson. I mean, but the guy. So for the listeners, the guy had a path that was going. I want to say it was something like 5 or 6 left. The club face was about 2 left. So I mean, he hit pretty consistent fades, but contact wasn't great. And whenever he mishit it, when he tried to hit, because he was trying to hit a draw, whenever he tried to hit a draw, it was going left of left. So, by the end of the lesson, you got him to have a couple that he had a positive path, which was really good for the right-handed golfer, because that was what he was trying to accomplish. And I mean, so I haven't shadowed as much as I would like to have at this point. So, I mean, something that I wanted to ask you.
Sure. So
we already have switched roles. This is my podcast now.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks for joining me. Is if the roles were reversed and you had to ask, so I'm the guru now, you're the 25-year-old.
Okay.
What questions would you have asked me?
About at that particular lesson?
Or just in general about coaching or life or really anything.
Oh God. That's a deep ocean.
I know.
That is a deep ocean. I would say
it could have been about the lesson. Let's just say it's about this lesson.
Yeah. I mean,
to start with.
I mean, I guess the answer or the question would be why. Why did you do what you did?
Okay. So I guess we can go off that. So the change that you made with the guy, club head was going way outside the hands, got very vertical at the top. And what you had him do was reverse engineer it. The hand path was already good to start with. So then you took it back, the club head, and you guided him where the club head was not inside the hands, or not outside the hands, it was inside. And then it got him deeper at the top.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to remember. I don't think the club head was inside the hands and the hands were going out.
Yes.
In the takeaway.
Yes.
Yeah. So the problem was, and this is where I find a lot of amateurs right now, is they couldn't get the hand path deep enough at the top because the pelvis wasn't rotating. He thought you gotta. Here's the. I'm playing both sides here a little bit. His model was, and this is the key that you want to listen to, right? It's like when you say, "Well, what were you trying to do?" He said, "Well, I'm trying to keep my hips from moving." That was his answer. Yeah. Right. So when you don't move your hips, right, the club has to move, the hands and arms have to move. And then he's going to try to create some type of rotation. The tendency is the pelvis is going to slide, okay, which creates a hand path that goes out and an extreme arm lift, right? So that's what we were getting, right? So he basically had no rotation. And this guy's in really good shape, by the way. This isn't my normal student that I get at Colleton. He's really in good shape. It wasn't like he couldn't do it. It was just that was his model. When I say model, that just is like, what are you trying to do? And that's like the most important question you can ask a student. If you can dig it out of them. A lot of times they just say, I don't know. I mean, they're not trying to do anything. It's just what they're doing. But if they can conceptualize or verbalize something, everybody's trying to do something. based on a lesson they've had before, a YouTube video, something their friends have told them they need to do. Mm-hmm. So he was trying to, I think, move the club straight back with no rotation because he thought his hips should stay still, and that's what created that. So, yeah, I actually just had him again.
Oh, okay.
The week after, because I told him like in 30 minutes, right? I mean, I was happy to get him to get a couple of positive club paths during that lesson, but I said I will have you hitting proper draws, in another lesson, and I did. But it's still, we went back to the same deal, right? The hands moving slightly in. We're not talking about sucking the hands way inside, but a little bit more depth of the way the pelvis was moving, hands a bit more in, club stayed out-ish. But I always say, even if the club head or the center of mass gets a little bit inside the hands, I would prefer that the hand path move inward as opposed to the center of mass staying on top of the hands and outside the hands and the hand path moving out with an arm lift. Because now they're just going to be super steep coming down, which is what he was, right?
Right.
So yeah, so getting him that depth at the top of the backswing was really what I wanted him to leave with. And he came back and he was doing pretty good. He was actually hitting it okay, still swinging a couple to the left. Then I had to add some feels in the transition. But this is a good nugget for you and all the young coaches is like, when do you move on to that second step? Right? So I think maybe even somebody asked this to Alan Terrell at the teaching summit, or somebody, I can't remember. It was asked to somebody, and the answer is, once you add something else, right? If you start to see the first, and this is why I write things on the board a lot of times. It's like number one, it'd be whatever takeaway, rotation, building the structure of the backswing, right? And if I say, all right, he's hit a couple, 4 or 5 good shots where he's doing that on a repeating basis, and then you go, all right, you're thinking about it in your mind. You're going, should I add something else? Well, again, that's your decision to make as a coach. Let's just say you decide and say yes. Okay, I'm going to add a downswing thought. All right. So then you're going to find out in the next couple of swings whether that first step is sticking enough to move on to step 2. Right. So let's just say, I introduced the second step of shallowing the club in the downswing, and the next thing you know, he goes back to his old backswing. That's a good indication to like you've basically got ahead of the student's learning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
So then I'll even tell the student, I'm like, okay, all right, great. You did exactly what I told you to do. We lost the first step because now we've got too much going on. Let's get back to step 1 and keep, getting some reps in and then you test it again. So.
Yeah, and I can think of a couple of examples where I've had to do that, where like I introduce something new and then the student goes back to the old and then the downswing looks good, but it's like, okay, we gotta take a step back. So
right.
Which that's a pretty good piece of advice, because sometimes it can be something that you kind of forget. You just want to, if it's a 30-minute lesson, you want to feel like they're getting their money's worth, but it's not the right thing to do if it's going to make them, if it's not going to make them any better.
Yeah, and again, it's a judgment call, but still, and that's where the communication. I think you mentioned something about you didn't, because I asked you one question before you left, and you was like, I said, well, what did you learn? You said, well, you didn't say you didn't waste words. Like, you didn't say anything that was way off tangent. It was mostly like it had a purpose, I guess, is probably the best way. I try to do that. So that's in that case, like, and you heard me tell the first guy, like, look, it was like a introductory free 30-minute lesson, which doesn't matter. I wouldn't have done anything different regardless if he's paying or not. But I said, look, we're building here and I'll even tell them, like, all I'm doing is judging you on the takeaway and the backswing, even though I know you want to hit the ball. I know you want to hit the ball better, but that's not our true judgment at this point. There will come a time, right? So, but right now, just building the backswing doesn't necessarily mean you're going to hit every shot perfect. So you're laying out the expectation for that player, and that's where the TrackMan in the video obviously give them feedback to where, oh, I did it. I did exactly what I was trying to do, right? You can't always put, and this is where I've changed my thinking over the years. I used to think everybody needs to hit the ball better as soon as we administer a new change. And it doesn't always mean that. If you're building into that climax of hitting the ball better, the first step doesn't always mean you're going to hit the ball better. So you have to explain that to the students so they're comfortable with failing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something I had to do with the lesson I had Saturday, because he was doing the movement correctly, and then it was just like he was topping it. But I was like, it looks great. I was like, you got to try and detach yourself from the golf ball, because I think it was Dan Jackson maybe said that, there's an emotional attachment to the golf ball.
Yes. That
people have, and you got to try and figure out how to get them kind of away from that. So, for something like that, would you tell him, or would you have told him if he asked, like, how much time is this going to take? Like, how many sessions do you think it's going to take to accomplish my goal of hitting a consistent draw? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say everybody's different. Like, that's a difficult question to answer. Everybody's going to progress at different speeds. Mm-hmm. I'd like to think it would be a couple lessons. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't tell them, like, you got to sign up for 4 series, and let's hope for the best. I mean, I feel like I can change him pretty quickly. And again, I've spent an hour and a half with him. He's already hitting draws. I would fully expect him come back and hitting draws, based on what I saw, but everybody's different, that's like, it's up to us as coaches to temper their expectations, but not give them false hope. Mm-hmm. So you kind of got to walk that line a little bit.
Yeah, I know, because that's a question I get so much is, someone will take a lesson with me and I'll kind of lay out, like, here's what we need to work on based on your goals and the level of commitment you have for practice and play. And they're like, okay, well, how many lessons is that going to take? And it's just like, I can't.
It's really not a good question if you think about it. It's not from their standpoint, and I get it. Like, but again, that's just the microwave society that we live in right now. Right? I want it right now. Mm-hmm. What do you mean? So the correct answer would be like, well, I don't know how much time are you going to put into it, for one. Mm-hmm. Like, how much are you going to do in your part?
Right.
And it's hard to judge how difficult a change is. Right. So I have players that I'll move their grip a centimeter, and that you'll think that you, like, cut their left arm off. Mm-hmm. Right. Because I mean, I always say a grip change, or a change is as big as you make it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they're, like, it's just, some people are dramatic, and then I'll have changes where I'm like, man, I'm thinking in my head, like, this is going to be kind of tough. And they'll look at me and go, I got this. I can do this. And that's the one, and that's the people I want to work with too, by the way. I mean, it's just a mindset. It's a learning mindset. Mm-hmm. I just got off the pod with Rick Sessinghouse, so I'm in the flow state a little bit. But it's kind of, I mean, that's how I think of it. It's like a change is only as big as you make it. And I'm doing this for the students as well out there as the coaches, but it depends, right? That's the classic answer for every coach. Is every situation is different. Yeah,
and I know some people. Like, I've tried in the past to do, like, a roadmap of what it's going to look like. So if you sign up for a 6-lesson package, I'll say, okay, lesson 1 might look like this, lesson 2, but it's like I can't really say beyond that. Yeah. And it's tough. And I realized that, halfway through lesson 1, it's like we might be working on, like, where I thought we'd be in lesson 4. And it's just like,
right, you don't know. So, or you may have to backtrack, right? I mean, again, it's like you may have to pivot.
Yeah,
it's like this. I'm making this hand gesture. It goes up and down. It's like little peaks and valleys. That's just the way. I mean, it's just the way you learn anything. And in golf is like times 100 how difficult it is. So I get the linear objective of a student to ask that question, but it truly makes no sense.
Yeah, it's not like you're taking an online course where you got chapter 1 through 10, and after chapter 10, you've got all the knowledge you need, and you're certified and whatever, mastered it.
Yeah.
So, I just think that's kind of the way we've been wired. I mean, because I grew up with technology, and everything is instant. I've never had to use a map to drive from one place to another. It's just pull it up on my phone. It's right there.
That's right.
Because I was talking to my dad, and I was because we were going to Charlotte, and I was like, how did people get around before GPS? And he was just like, it's like you just got a map.
You had a map, or you had somebody on the phone tell you these are the directions. You got to turn left at this road, turn right at this road, and you had to write them down. Yeah.
And
I can hardly remember it.
And if you pass by the McDonald's, you've gone too far. Turn around and go back.
Landmarks. You use landmarks and stuff. Yeah, it's crazy. All right, next question.
All right. So it was a question that I asked you at the boot camp that I think would be good for the young coaches like myself to hear. So I asked you, all the top coaches talk about how they used to talk so much during lessons when they first started out. And then as they progressed, they started saying less. So what were some of the things you would say or talk about too much in lessons when you first started out as a coach that you kind of cut out?
Yeah, it was all you knew. And that's the first thing. Like, I didn't know that much. Mm-hmm. Or the stuff that I thought I knew was probably bad information. Looking back, it's funny that I've had students that I've worked with, that you see randomly through different jobs, and like, I worked with you like 20 years ago, and then I still have the note card that you gave me, and I'm like, well, throw that away because it's probably shit right now, because I've evolved and I've learned so much since then. But I don't know if I could say specifically what I would say, but it was more like I would probably tell them everything that I thought they needed to know in a golf lesson, which was, like we talked about earlier, is probably stuff they needed to know in maybe a month's worth of golf lessons, right? In the one lesson. So it's like when you're a young coach, I think a lot of times you're trying to improve your credibility by making you look smart during a lesson, which some of that's important. Like you have to have some things that you say, and obviously results are going to take care of a lot of it. If the student gets better, they're going to think you're really smart. Mm-hmm. But I think it's how we speak to people and how the things we tell them are going to make an impression on them. But it was probably even before I started teaching full time. Who knows what those lessons look like? I knew a decent amount. It was all kind of what I read through books. I didn't really get to shadow a whole lot of top coaches when I was your age. And, it was just a lot of what we read and what we were doing in our own games and what we saw on TV and what we heard top players say they were doing. So it was a lot of fluff, as I would call it. Okay. So but the point is, regardless of what it is, wherever you are is where you are. Like, you only know what you know. Mm-hmm. Like, you only know what information you know right now. Right. Now, the key is to administer that information at the right time and to pick the right, area to work on in your lessons and have the correct progression. Mm-hmm. And, and as you get older, you're going to start to build that toolbox of kind of repertoire of what you know is going to work in this situation. So it's always just every single lesson you're learning, okay, this worked, this didn't work, this happened. Whether you're, writing it down helps, but I used to take, I still journal, but I used to keep a lot of journals of, like, at the end of the day, like, man, whatever I said to this guy didn't work and this worked. It's just a lot of trial and error at the point of, figuring that out. But it's not that you don't say anything, because you can be the other way, and that's not good. If you don't say anything in a lesson, that's no good. Right. So there's a blend. and then you got to show some personality. And that's why, again, regardless of what I did, if I did it on purpose or not, the reading all the books, watching all the movies. I'm a movie freak, right? And all this stuff, like I use movie lines all the time in my, I don't know if I did any when you watch me coach, but movie lines will come out. Just that's the way I think. My whole life is kind of a movie quote. It seems like that applies to something that I'm working on in the golf lesson. But it's memorable, right? Metaphors, analogies, like you got to come up with so many of those that a student can attach to a feel of whatever you're telling them. And then again, then just hammer on it, right? I mean, it's just more about repeating the same things rather than adding to the flow of consciousness of whatever they're trying to do based on what you've told them. And that's why I think Dan Jackson said it in his interview that, I would suggest that you every now and again record yourself teaching and then go back and listen to it. It's not even watching it, but like listening to what you say. And and you might say the perfect things, but then you might say some, too many things and go, oh, wow, I just gave that person 6 things to work on. And you didn't realize it, right? I mean, it's just, sometimes we're unaware. So yeah, I don't know if that answers it fully, but that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And I have actually filmed myself give a couple of lessons, which has been extremely beneficial because, at first it's kind of cringy. It's like, I've filmed myself giving golf tips and stuff like that, but that's completely different. If I mess it up, I can just stop it and start over.
Right.
With the golf lesson, it's kind of hard. I mean, you can go back and say, hey, that wasn't the right thing, but, like I'll listen to something I'll say and I'm like, what was I talking about? Or, just like, it's like, where was I going with that? Or I would like I would stop saying, I would like stop mid sentence and just stop talking. It was like, what am I doing?
I do it all the time. Like my brain goes in like 12 different directions at one time sometimes. And and it comes out of my mouth like that. And it just, but then when I'm really, really good, and this is kind of being self-aware, is when I'm really focused on one or two things and then have sort of a lineage of where I'm going with that player. And that's, I think, when I'm at my best. Like usually I'm not very good when, not that I'm not confident in the direction I'm going. It's just like when I have too many things going on and too many directions that I'm trying to go with my mind, because then it comes out of my mouth. And then whatever drills I'm giving them. But again, it's like every golf lesson, it's like if you watch me teach for a month, you would have a whole different, you'd see like so many different styles of golf lessons that you'd be like, wow, this is pretty creative. Like, I mean, it's just, a lot of times it's on the fly too. It's like, I don't have no clue. Like I've had coaches come in and look and watch me teach and like, why'd you do that? I'm like, honestly, I didn't even know. Like it just, what hit me at the moment, it was kind of intuition that this wasn't working or this is the direction I wanted to go. And then sometimes I'll just make up drills or I'll do the drill and, I don't know. But that's part of that's the beauty of what we do. It's just it's not cookie cutter. It's like trying to do everything you possibly can to make that person in front of you change. And that's the genius in what we do. Yeah.
I know a couple of like cool drills that, I've implemented have just been things that I just came up with on the fly. Like I had a kid that his right-handed golfer, his left foot would slide back. Like it would slide back, and it didn't matter what I told him or whatever. It was like I just couldn't get him to stop doing it. And I don't really have many training aids or anything, and I'm just like looking around for anything that I can, and I grab a basket and stick it right behind his foot, and then all of a sudden he starts striping it. And I mean, this is a first time lesson for a kid, and his eyes are lighting up. Just because I came up with this thing on the fly, and he he got it.
Perfect.
Which, couldn't plan for that.
No, it's like you just don't know when stuff like that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Cool. What else?
Let's see. So, and this is kind of going back to your early days. So, what happened or what moment kind of led to you saying like, yep, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to be a golf coach. I want to teach lessons for a living and coach people.
I'm not sure if it was just a moment or it was just maybe a situation that I was in my career when I was a head professional. And, again, just kind of taking inventory of, what makes you happy. What are the best parts of your day? When I was at my first, I was the head professional at a club, and there was a sort of a satellite golf school on property, which is like, it was one coach, and they'd bring like 4 students in, and they would have like a golf school. So I found myself in my off time going to basically watch that coach teach like every second I could, because I just wanted that. I wanted to learn. And I think that was, and just talking, it was a female, and just talking to her, and then literally tried to hire me because she was like, you just talking to me like I was miserable being a head professional, and not to knock any head professionals out there. I think it's great if you can do it, but I am not. And then just as I get older, I sort of figure out what makes me tick. I'm not a multitasker. I'm a very good single tasker, as somebody would say. Like if I get a vision of where I want to go, then I'm going to get there, and I'm going to be, I'll do everything I can to do that. So once I made that decision to go teach full time, it was like a whole new world opened up, and I knew I was in the right place, because all I had to worry about is like getting better as a coach. 24/7, I was just, how can I get better as a person, as a coach, as a teacher, whatever. I didn't have to worry about the 12 pillars of what I was doing as a head pro, managing 50 people and running golf tournaments and inventory and the members. And all I had to do was worry about, the person in front of me, obviously just the staff that I was around, but, I just kind of knew I was in the right place. So it's, I don't know, you can call it intuition, self-awareness. It wasn't like a moment, but it was more just, I guess a better answer too is I'm a big goal setter. So every year I would sit down and I'd always write my goals on an index card. And if you're a head pro or assistant pro, and 5 out of 5 of your goals is to be a top teacher, all right? And then I'm looking down going, I'm in the wrong place. God has a better plan for me. So that was part of that. And then some things happened where I had to make a choice, which was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, and then started teaching full time.
Yeah. I mean, that was almost kind of what happened with me. So when COVID hit, my club closed down for almost 2 months. And I kind of did the same thing like you did. Like, what am I most happy doing at my job? And turned out it was when I was giving lessons and having members come up to me in the pro shop and be like, I just shot my best round ever, or, just all these success stories, and they're thanking me, and I'm just like, you hit the golf shots and everything. And then it was just like, maybe I'm good at it. Maybe I just got lucky. I don't know, but I really like this. And this is really what I want to do. I don't see myself working in golf ops, being a head pro for, for my career.
Yeah. Some can do both. I mean, I've seen there's a lot of head pros out there that are great teachers. I mean, kudos to you. There are head pros that can play and teach. I mean, I just couldn't do it all. Like if I was doing that, I would be mediocre at everything instead of really good at like what I'm doing now. That's just me.
And that's kind of what hit me too, is like, I really enjoy giving lessons, but it's hour 12 and I'm giving a lesson at, right before dark, and I'm not able to give the student that's paying me money my best. So, it's not enjoyable for me. it can't be enjoyable for them because there's no way they can't see in my face that, I'm just drained. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not for everybody. That's what I tell people. It's like, the money, you can look at it like that's the quickest way to make more money. But if it's about the money, then you're in the wrong place. Mm-hmm. Right. It's like build your skills, do what increase your value. Because it's not for everybody standing out in the hot sun for 10, 12 hours a day and then waking up and doing it again the next day for 11 months. It takes kind of a special person.
Yeah, the thing that I tell people is, I'm making less money now than I've ever made in my adult life, but I've never been happier.
There you go. You can't. It's tough to put a price on happiness, and then good for you, man. If you listen back to some of my earlier podcasts, I've told the story. But when I went from being a head pro to a full-time teacher, I took a $20,000 pay cut. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I didn't care because one, I knew the direction I was going, and I knew the money would come if I built my skills and it just kept getting better as a teacher. And I knew I was insanely driven to be the best. Mm-hmm. Right. So the money, I didn't care. I went from making back in $45,000 to $26,000 or something. Mm-hmm. The first year I was teaching full time, and that quickly changed. But if I would have been like, oh shoot, I'm not going to do that. It's like that much less money. And I had a family. It was like, it was a big decision, but again, I trusted who I was and knew that eventually somebody was going to pay me what I was worth. Mm-hmm. That was my mindset. So good for you. It'll come. Like if it's meant to be, like you just keep doing what you're doing, get better. You're going to, somebody's going to pay you.
Yeah. It's not really, as long as I'm able to comfortably pay my bills and everything, for now, it's a process. It's not, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And
there you go.
I'm really enjoying the process so far and getting to meet some really cool people. And, the past couple of weeks have just been insane with all the learning and growth and a lot of miles on the road, but it's all worth it.
That's the fun part, man.
Oh, no.
All right. What else? What other questions?
Let's see.
Or what did we get through the day? I can't even remember.
We only got through one lesson, and then we just kind of pivoted.
Because I know a couple, I know one was at least a playing lesson, right?
Yes.
So,
the playing lesson is what you had at the end.
Yeah.
And we could talk about that. So I know the student, he was one of those guys that whenever he got out under the gun, it was like he just completely changed into a different person. And, he was like the nicest guy.
Yeah. And
it was like you were trying to get him to get in that mode while you were doing the playing lesson. So, I know there's, he'd already played that day, and then, I'm there, which he probably wasn't expecting, and all these different things, and you're just trying to get him to like, hey, come on, let's focus.
Yeah.
So,
well, I was getting on him because he was acting like it was just a casual round of golf, and I said, "Are we working? Or are we not working?" Right. So
right.
Yeah, and this guy's great. He's the guy that everybody wants to teach because one, he listens to the podcast, and everybody else's podcast too. And I got him on the Decade app. I've got him, we're working on a lot of course. He just won. He was the super senior champion, club champion, and now he just won the match play championship last week.
He won that. I know that's what he was prepping for.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
Right. That's what he was prepping for. So he won that, and so he's like a whole different guy. But yeah, it was funny. I was getting on him because he wasn't going through his routine, right? And I was like, "What are we doing? Are we working, or are we just goofing around?" Mm-hmm. So, what else did you take from that experience? I don't know. I can't even remember exactly what we did.
I know you played a game to start out with. What was
2 drives and 5?
2 drives and 5. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was like the first couple of shots he hit he wasn't focused, he just flared it out to the right and put them both in the fairway bunker. And, you were really just hammering in the routine and working on, shot selection based on the flag and kind of talking through everything with him. I know he was trying to get dialed in and ready for the match play, which obviously he did pretty well. But you kind of went over. I know there was a trouble shot that he had if he was short-sighted and he had to go up a mound to get onto the green. Because I think what he was wanting to do was, I think he was wanting to try and fly it on the green, and it just wasn't like it. Just he wasn't going to get it anywhere close to the pin if he did that. And because then he talked about doing a bump and run with a 7-iron, and you changed it and had him work on what did you call it? Did you call it the Rick Sessinghouse hybrid? Is that what it was?
No, I don't think it was that, but
I don't think it was just. I thought that was what you called it.
No, it was a hybrid putt.
The hybrid putt.
No, I said Rick in the if Rick listens, that'll be great. I said Rick would give him, it would be like a 3-step process. So he would let the student do what they would do. And then I said, well, maybe, and then he would add something that was a different option. And then he would say, all right, no, he would say, this is what I would do. And then he said, the third was, what was another way we could do it? Okay. So it kind of was a process of. Okay.
I was up there shagging balls for you guys. So I wasn't close enough to hear.
Yeah, that's right. Another good shadow move, by the way. Helping out the coach.
I mean, you're having me there. I mean, what am I going to do? Just stand there and watch you guys go shag those golf balls while I stand there with my arms crossed? No, I tried to help out as much as I could. But yeah, let's see what else we had on the. So we had a putting lesson, which I thought was very beneficial. I feel like the weakest part of my coaching is probably my putting coaching. I definitely need to do a lot more research on that, and maybe if you could kind of point me and the young coaches and all the listeners in the right direction of, like, some good stuff to look at, good material to read or whatever. But yeah, so the lesson you had, I know she had a really good backstroke, and then she had like a lot of acceleration through, and you were getting her to lengthen the arc or lengthen the backstroke, and then have it coast through. It's a minivan, not a Ferrari, as I remember. Yeah. I remember is what you said.
Yep. Yeah, that was a quick. I mean, that's not my typical putting lesson. It was a quick 30-minute, but I mean, it's like, if that's what you got, that's what you got. And I put her on Putt Lab, and she was a pretty good player from what I remember. She was, she was like a 12, I think. Yeah. And yeah, that was kind of what I'd call the low hanging fruit. It was just her acceleration profile was a little bit jacked up, a little bit over accelerating, and her feedback was, her touch was not very good. So that's kind of where I went. And that's about all we had time for. Just working on the force that she was creating in the backstroke to add some force and a bit of length so she didn't have to over accelerate.
Yeah, which, I mean, what I would tell people, which I don't now obviously, is, if I have people that, they decel a lot, I tell them that, oh, you need to speed it up, accelerate through, and then all of a sudden they're blowing it, 5-6 feet by, and their face control is terrible. So, I mean, I thought that was pretty, that's definitely helped. I mean, I've already implemented it in my own practice, just kind of working on it. Yeah. Because I used to have people tell me, like, because I've always been a pretty good putter. People say, you got a really long backstroke and it looks like you decel. And I'm like, but I'm making everything. So, that's,
So everybody's saying that to Patrick Cantlay right now. Look how he's doing.
Right. What was it, 14 strokes gained?
Yeah.
Beat Bryson in that playoff?
He's doing okay.
He's doing okay.
Yeah. So that's one of the biggest things that I learned years ago when I first started working with Putt Lab, is that the best putters that I tested, peak speed was prior to impact, and the acceleration rate was pretty darn smooth. It was pretty constant, if not sometimes decreasing in acceleration, and not too many of them were accelerating through the ball. So, getting, different ways to kind of train that is key. Like, again, it's reverse engineering it. Like, why is it happening? Well, one, it's their concept to hit through the ball or their model. And then two is that usually precedes a very short and slow backstroke. So they don't have enough energy in the putter to cruise through impact and get the ball speed up enough to get it to go far enough. So it's getting, one, it's getting them to buy into the concept. And the Putt Lab helps a lot because they can just basically see the graph and understand what I'm, and then again, you got to explain it to them. Right. And then it's, a lot of different things, changing the environment. I'll get people to hit putts on a severe downslope and tell them to leave it short with a long backstroke, which will change their profile. I mean, it's just a lot of things, feel wise you can do, but it ends up, and it's cool to show them that what looked like a really asymmetrical stroke, really short backstroke and a really long follow through, when they start doing what I'm showing them, that it ends up being relatively the same back and through, even when they feel like they're stopping their follow through.
Right.
So it's a lot. There's a lot to that. Yeah. As far as putting coaching, I mean, again, obviously spending a lot of time with me when I'm actually teaching really good players putting. I think my stuff is really tight. A lot of the stuff I've learned from John Graham, huge resource. Phil Kenyon, and then, David Orr, probably my top three that I've learned from over the years. Just take a little bit from everybody, but then it's just like we talked about earlier, just getting in there and developing your own style. But I mean, putting is so subjective and so intricate, and there's so many different moving parts because the environment changes every single putt. That's the difficult part, which I think it's so cool to be a coach that can help people manage that and organize that. That's why I love teaching putting.
Yeah. So, and that was you kind of answered it for me, but I was going to ask like how you would train that if you didn't have any technology, and you kind of answered that with having them miss it short with a downhill putt where they take a really long backstroke. Anything else that you'd do if you didn't, without technology, to try and have them buy into?
Yeah, I mean, I'll use tees, as far as length, like you can set a tee behind, like just how long, wherever the backstroke stops, and where you want them to stop. And then I'll film them, like from the face on, and show it to them. So you're giving them visual feedback of how long the stroke is or how short it is. Okay. The one thing that's probably the best thing, and I've said this before in the pod, but it's worth repeating, is I'll have them make a backstroke again that's longer and a little faster if necessary. And that's the good thing about Putt Lab too, is you get the metrics on the timing and speed of the backstroke. I'll have them make a backstroke, and then I'll tell them when you hear the sound of impact, when you hear the sound, then I want you to actually stop the putter. I want the putter to break. So by the time the brain hears that sound, there's already a follow through present. See, so it's amazing how that kind of, you see good putters, they don't have these long runoffs in their follow through. They're hitting the ball, and their putting strokes are pretty tight as far as the length, based on speed and length of putt. So that's one of my go-tos. So you can just sit there and I would, honestly, I would take the hole away whenever possible. Have them putt the strings, have them putt the ball markers, have them putt the tees, whatever it is, as a distance choice, and just have them, take it back farther, take them back faster, and then say, all right, well, try to leave it short. Okay, try to hit it a little farther. Try to hit, so you're increasing the force in the forward stroke, and the speed, and getting them to, kind of do a little bit more, a little bit less. So they start getting the feel. Because, I mean, again, it's like then it's like, all right, great. I mean, you know, Bryson's talked about how he's got like a metrics of like how far he can take it back and through. And I mean, that's great. I mean, it's sort of a baseline on a flat putt. But now how do you change that when it's downhill, side hill, when it's uphill? You know, that's a whole different. Now you need more speed. You need more length. So that becomes just, you know, touch and intuition, I think.
Yeah. I really liked whenever you were testing her on Sam was you would kind of stand off to the side, let her hit her putt, and then you'd swat it out of the way before it got a chance to get to the hole. So you took away that you didn't allow her to see what happened. So that way she'd try and make the same stroke.
Right. Yeah. So she didn't see the outcome. Yeah. So she wouldn't adjust to the result.
Right. Yeah. I thought that was really good. Let's see what else we went over in that. And she actually drained some bombs in the studio there towards the end.
Yeah. No, she did pretty good. She was happy.
Yeah. Let's see. So I know technology is a really big part of your teaching. So for someone like me, the only technology I really have is my phone. And, you know, what benefits do you think there is to not having technology starting out, or if any?
I think it improves your eye because you have to look closer at the swing. Like you got to really, really focus on what the person's doing. If you don't have technology, right? And you also have to look. So I mean, you always should kind of look at the ball. You know, what's the ball flight doing, and work backwards. But it's going to cause you again. If you can look at a student, but then you can really look at a student. Like, what are you really looking at? It's just like when you show. This is another good tip is like when you show somebody video, you've got to guide them to what they need to be looking at. If not, they're going to be looking at something else. Like if you're trying to get them to look at the top of the swing and they're looking at their feet, and you're like, oh, well, my knee's doing something funny. You don't have their attention, right? So it's the same thing with coaching is when you're really looking at the swing, like what are you really focusing on? Like the backswing obviously is easier to look at because it's slower. You know, we can't really see impact. You can hear the sound. Like I've got a pretty good auditory idea of like, was it solid? Was it a toe strike? Was it a heel strike? Was it on the bottom? But you have to really focus on like, what are you looking at? Like, what's the hand path doing? What's the club doing? So I think that's the way I learned to start. When I started teaching, that's all I had. I didn't have a phone. Right. I didn't have anything until I got the Dana Rader, which is, I was already 10 years into my teaching career. All I had was just my eyes, right? Eyes, the ground, and the ball. So yeah, I think there can be a benefit to that. And then you start looking at video and slowing it down. And you're like, okay, now it matches up to like, all right, is that what I really thought it looked like? And then you look at TrackMan or a launch monitor and you say, okay, that's what the club did. That's what the ball did. Does it match up with what you thought it did, right? You can almost play a game with yourself and guess. Yeah. Like I always say, if I watch a couple of swings and I watch what the ball does, I can get really, really close to path and face. No, not exact. And I'm not going to, angle of attack's a little more difficult, but I can get really, really close to guessing that relationship just based on what I see.
Yeah, that was kind of what I did in college. I tried, because at Methodist we had 2 TrackMan, and I got to run the TrackMan, let other students hit on it, and I would make a game out of it, and people would be like, what do you think the spin was on that? And I would look at it and I would say something. There'd be like 3 or 4 times I got within 100 RPMs, and I'm like, how do you do that? It's like I've watched so many shots.
There you go.
It's kind of a.
Yeah. So imagine watching a million shots or however many shots I've seen in my lifetime, right? Yeah. You're going to get pretty good at it if you pay attention. Like there's a difference in looking and then actually looking. I think there's a big difference in focus and then just kind of sort of looking at whatever. I mean, like you got to really, really be intently watching whatever you're trying to see.
Yeah.
That's a great question. All right, one more and then we gotta jump off.
Okay. All right. So let's see. So I kind of want to go back to the question about like what you would ask. I know you talked about like the why.
Mm-hmm.
But when asking another coach, you know, if the roles are reversed about their career, like what is a mistake that you made early on that you see a lot of young coaches make that you want to try and have them not make? Like what? So let me rephrase that better.
Yeah.
What mistakes do you see a lot of young coaches make so often that you would want to see them correct? Like, I know we talked a lot about talking too much or...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't even think talking too much is really a big mistake as long as the information is pretty good.
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, just thinking about some of the lessons that I've seen over the years where I think this may not even be answering your question, but it's going to have a point. Yeah. But I don't appreciate people that are teaching that are misinformed. Meaning, if the information is out there and you're not willing to go get it, but you're still giving shit golf lessons, that bothers me. Right? So a good example is like, hopefully you're not going to go and give a putting lesson and tell somebody to like hit through the ball. See what I'm saying? If you go watch somebody and they're giving that golf lesson, that would make me uncomfortable.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like to know I mean, there's no absolutes in golf. Okay. I mean, let me preface that. I'm not saying that you can't give bad information, but I guess the people that bother me is the ones that aren't getting after the information when it's available to them. If they just do a little bit of work. Right? And they continue to teach the same BS that's been taught 20 years ago. Right? So if I was given the same golf lesson I was given 20 years ago, then I shouldn't be teaching. So it's more about the information, I think, for me than anything else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that answered my question. I mean,
it's like it's not so much. I don't know. I just get tired. I get a little bit tired of the fluff that I hear from other coaches, and that's pretty bold for me to say because I'm very non-confrontational. But I can handle a poor golf lesson, or not even a poor golf lesson, if the intention is right and the information is good, and the student just maybe doesn't get it. That happens. That happens to me sometimes, right? Maybe you didn't connect. Maybe you didn't say it the correct way. But if the information is solid, I'm good with that. You know, or you're finding that. And this is back to like when I was a young coach. There were so many. I had so many questions, right? I had so many questions when I was starting to get into teaching full time that I knew, like, gosh, I don't know how to teach that pattern, or I don't know how to get that player to do this, and that was okay. But I wasn't going away from that lesson going, well, that was awesome. I was going away from that lesson going, I got to find somebody that can help me. You know, I got lots of questions and I need answers. So that was what made me hungry to get better. And that's okay in anything in life, right? So that's the ones I have problems with, where they're teaching this stuff and going, oh, well, that I'm really confident that I was giving them the right information when I haven't really gone out and seek the information. Because it's there. It's right in front of you. Like,
right.
Jim Rohn says there's no excuse for being stupid right now.
Yeah.
I've said that.
I was gonna say that because I've heard you say that before.
Yeah, there's no excuse. There's no excuse.
No, The thing that I tell myself a lot is complacency scares me.
It should.
Like I don't ever want to have someone say, yeah, I'm 15 years down the road, it's like, oh yeah, McAulay's still talking about the same thing he talked about 10 years ago.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that I talk about that I've talked about in the past, but it's good. It's good because it's worked, right? I mean, again, it's like a lot of this is going to create this outcome. If I say X and do this, X is going to happen. But there's others. I mean, God, I've learned so much in the last 10, just the 5 to 10 years. That's changed the way I look at things. And I hope that I'm always going to be that way. It's just, that's the advice. That's the gold.
Yeah. So stay away from complacency, everybody.
There you go.
That's basically the short answer for that. So that's great. So
how you going to close your show, McAulay?
I wasn't mentally prepared for this. You're gonna have to have me on another time so I can come up with a better closing.
Well done. Yeah. So you just got your foot in the door again. Yeah. No, but this is cool, man. And definitely can do this again. But hopefully, some young coaches out there, any coach, learned a few things, and I applaud you for your drive and passion to get better. And with that mindset, then you're always going to be my friend.
All right.
There it is.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, I've really enjoyed the time I spent with you and really appreciate the call and using this as a platform to help other coaches, And we all need to try and help each other, grow together. It's what it's all about, because whenever we help each other be better, we make other people play better golf, and we all succeed and benefit from it.
There you go. Well said, brother. Well, give out your social handles, so see if we can get you a few more followers. Okay, so it is on Instagram, McAulay Renfro Golf. Twitter, I'm not very active yet, but hoping to start tweeting a little bit more. It's Mac Renfro Golf, because McAulay Renfro Golf's it's a little too long. So, but yeah, feel free to hit me up, reach out, ask any questions or just want to connect. Be more than happy to. There you go. All right, my man. Well, have a good night. All right. You do the same. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Jason. All right.